Jim the Ape One Proof. Hello again, humans. It is I, Jim the Ape, and with all of the horrible shit that's been happening in the world lately, I wanted to get back to the classic clip-by-clip response videos of old to provide some much-needed laughs, cringes, and just plain entertainment. Also, in today's video, I'm probably going to court some negative comments because I'm going to be playing devil's advocate for one of the internet's biggest punching bags. Why do I like to do this? Because you faggots don't get to tell me what does and doesn't suck. Nickelback is a mediocre band, but not a terrible one. UB40 is much more deserving of that hatred. The Transformers movies are okay as far as dumb CGI action movies go. And on the subject of today's video, The Big Bang Theory is actually a decent show that does occasionally get a laugh out of me. So the person I'm responding to today claims that the main characters of The Big Bang Theory exemplify something he calls the adorkable misogynist. I'll get to why I disagree with that assessment later in this video. But first, I have to inform you, my audience, that I'm skipping about 5 minutes into the video. During the intro that I'm skipping, Jonathan McIntosh, former puppet of Anita Sarkeesian, or perhaps it was the other way around, describes what the Big Bang Theory sitcom is, and then examples of other nerdy characters from 80s movies, most of which I've never seen. Some of the examples of so-called misogyny that he presents look like they might have some merit to it, others not so much. It's hard to say for sure without knowing the full context. So without any further ado, let's get to the substantive body of the video.
The four geeky friends on this show are written to be genuinely likable guys. They're even capable of fleeting moments of heartfelt sensitivity, thoughtfulness, and sweetness.
Well, damn, it's almost like they're supposed to be human beings or something.
This non-threatening, adorkable framing is designed to excuse the other, more toxic part of the trope. The four leading men on Big Bang Theory each present their own distinct flavor of adorkable misogyny.
Again, it's almost like they're supposed to be individuals with their own unique personalities instead of some kind of insane demonic rapist collective. I know, what a whimsical flight of fancy that is.
Howard is the creepy pervert with a heart of gold.
And of course you're starting with the most overbearing character in terms of behavior towards women. He's the lowest of the low-hanging fruits. But don't worry, I still have rebuttals to make for this section of the video.
Throughout the first several seasons, he's depicted as a wannabe pickup artist.
Hold it right there. I have to correct a huge mistake you just made. No one wants to be a pickup artist. Pretty much everyone agrees those guys are scumbags.
He stalks, harasses, objectifies, and tries to trick dozens of women into sleeping with him.
Yes, and the joke is that despite his persistence and at times his arguable overconfidence, roughly 99 times out of 100, he fucking fails!
Howard talks about women the way a zookeeper might talk about trapping and taming wild animals.
See, first we let the lawyers and the jocks thin the herd, and then we go after the weak and the old and the lame.
That's a nice cherry. I hope you had fun picking it. But do you know what the most important difference is between that and your analogy? In the thing that Wallowitz was just talking about, the women have a choice. And his entire goal is to persuade women to have sex with him willingly. So don't compare that to your species' barbaric kidnapping, imprisonment, and torture of mine. Okay, Johnny Mac?
He's conniving, he's manipulative, and his behavior sometimes crosses the line into criminal activity.
There's the house. I found America's top models. Are you sure? Look, on the roof, Anais and Giselle are sunbathing. European style.
You can recognize people on Google Earth?
Of course not. I got a buddy of mine at NORAD to have a spy drone fly over.
Okay, obviously that kind of behavior is morally wrong and should not be condoned. But just because it's featured in a fictional television show, does that mean that the show is condoning it to be done in real life by the viewers? I think not. Also, it's worth pointing out that that scene is a comedic exaggeration depicting what a nerdy, lonely, and horny scientist might try to do with the resources and intellect available to him if he were uninhibited by the kinds of legislative penal codes and social behavior standards that exist in the real world. Or, to put it another way, it's just a joke, you fucking insane ideologue! It's not real!
I should note that once Howard is in a committed long-term relationship, the way that his male chauvinism is expressed does shift slightly.
Yeah, that's called character development. It usually only happens on television dramas, but it does occasionally happen on sitcoms too.
So he stops trying to be a womanizer, but he still demands to be taken care of.
Okay.
And he refuses to share in any of the domestic responsibilities.
Want to pause the video game and help me clean up?
I'm cleaning up. Look at the mess the Joker made of Gotham City.
I want this to feel like my house, too.
Oh, honey, of course it's your house. Why else would you be cleaning it all the time?
That is because of his fucking mother! I find it a bit strange at best, and extremely disingenuous of you at worst, that you didn't even mention her, seeing as how she is a fundamental part of Howard's character. To make a long story short, Howard Wolowitz had an overbearing, overprotective helicopter mom who effectively turned him into an extremely dependent mama's boy, ill-equipped to functionally survive in the real world on his own. I say had because tragically, the actress who played the voice of Howard's always off-screen mother died during the run of the show, and her character was killed off shortly thereafter rather than try and replace her. Poetically, the character of Bernadette, Howard's wife, took on the role of being his caretaker, and even manages to sometimes sound eerily similar to his late mother when angrily screaming at him. How you left out all of this crucial detail about his character tells me one of two things. Either you are drastically misinformed about the character arcs and ongoing storyline of the show, or you're deliberately cherry-picking so as to mislead uninformed viewers of your video into buying the ideological narrative you've been selling for years. Either way, cut that shit out.
Raj is the sensitive guy turned inappropriate drunk.
I actually have a theory that Raj might be a closeted homosexual who doesn't even realize himself that he's gay, but that's not been even close to confirmed by the show, and I'm sure you'll call me a homophobe just for suggesting it, even though I don't actually care if he's gay or not. It's just a theory.
He's the show's token geek of color.
Oh, for fuck's sake, does skin color really matter that much to you? Because if it does, congratulations! You're a fucking racist!
And is endlessly mocked for being the most effeminate of the four friends.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Raj is also the most socially awkward around women. In the first few seasons, he can't speak to women at all.
That's just fascinating.
Thank you.
Except when he's drunk or on drugs.
Would you like to hear more about it in my hot tub?
Gee, do you think that might be, oh, I don't know, a metaphor for guys who simply feel like they can't talk to women because they're so nervous and afraid of rejection? Do you think that might be relatable to someone who loves women and wants to be with one but lacks the social skills to make it happen? No, I'm just being silly. Of course it can only mean that he hates women!
And it's in those uninhibited moments when we see some very extreme levels of underlying misogyny come to the forefront.
I'm very comfortable here. Penny dear, why don't you shoot another silver bullet my way?
Yeah, I don't know if you realize this, but the audience is not really meant to find that behavior charming. There's kind of a general reaction from the other characters of like, oh great, now Raj can talk to women, but he's being a dick. Also, some women are actually into the idea of taking care of their man, and that includes things like making him a sandwich or bringing him a beer. Who the fuck are you to tell a woman what she can and cannot be into sexually? I think you're the fucking misogynist here, Johnny.
Leonard is the nice guy enabler. He plays the more down-to-earth, normal one of the group.
That's a comedic device known as the straight man, no relation to sexuality. The purpose of the straight man is to be a relatable, normal character for the more exaggerated, wacky characters to play off of. The contrast created by the existence of the straight man is the comedic juxtaposition that forms the basis for many jokes in a comedy show or film. Just think about it. Would the crazy antics of Rick Sanchez be as funny as they are without the presence of the reluctant and reserved Morty Smith? I don't think they would be.
Still, he participates in much of the same behavior as his cohorts, just to a lesser degree.
By that, do you mean showing a romantic and or sexual interest in a woman? Because I fail to see how that's a bad thing or how that's inherently misogyny.
Leonard's character arc is basically the pathetic nice guy who refuses to take no for an answer.
That's an interesting assessment. I must have forgot about the episode where Leonard raped Penny! I think you mean he didn't stop having feelings for her just because she initially was not romantically interested in him and just wanted to be friends. But at no point did he lack the respect for her wishes that caused him to just simply hang his head in sorrow and sulk away.
And who eventually gets the girl.
How did you get her to go out with you?
Well, she moved in across the hall.
And he started to slowly wear me down.
Like a river carves a canyon.
I fundamentally disagree with this characterization by both you, Johnny Mac and Cheese, and the show itself, because it lacks the nuanced understanding of how their vastly different personalities clashed at first before finding enough common ground and falling in love with each other despite their differences. It's a small point, but I guess even the show kind of gets it wrong in my opinion, so moving on.
One of the roles that Leonard plays on the show is as the guy who excuses and enables the sexism of his male friends.
And you know that deep down inside, Howard's a really nice guy.
Cut the crap. You set this up, didn't you?
Yes.
She's a hooker, isn't she?
A prostitute, yes.
You already gave her the money?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hiring a prostitute is not sexism, you fucking sheltered, puritanical fuckwit. It's consent. You're buying consent from someone who is willing to sell it for monetary value, just like any other goods or services. It would be really fucking nice if prudish assholes such as yourself would shut the fuck up and we could legalize and regulate sex work just like any other business. You may not like it, but it's better than illegally sex-trafficked women and girls being turned out by gangsters who take all the money and beat and rape their workers. Wouldn't you agree, Johnny?
He might roll his eyes at his friends' antics, but he never seriously challenges their behavior.
But I'd like to get lost in her Bermuda Triangle.
It's not helpful.
Then I won't say I'd like to cover 3/4 of her surface area.
Are we done?
And his mild protests work as a springboard for still more sexist jokes.
Not yet, this is fun. Oh, I know. I'd let her free my Willie.
What would you have him do? Verbally chastise his friends in the cafeteria of the university in front of a bunch of other people and essentially throw away his friendship with them, all because they made a few off-color comments he didn't like? My God, are you weak-willed and overly sensitive if you're offended by the mere concept of men expressing sexual interest in a woman? Do you realize that's what you're doing? You're demonizing male sexuality. Pretty soon, we're gonna need another sexual revolution, but specifically for men this time, and more for the right to verbally express sexual interest in a woman rather than just to be able to sleep with whoever you want, as long as they're a consenting adult. Seriously, get it through your head. Sexual does not equal sexist, and male sexuality does not equal misogyny!
Sheldon is the innocent bigot.
No, Sheldon is the reason the show is popular and is also the reason for its most insufferable moments. He's the source of most of the memes, the irritatingly often quoted bazinga catchphrase, and the torso on which most of the nerd culture pandering t-shirts are most awkwardly clad. To me, he's a quirky side character that should have never become the focal point of the show, but I'm sure I'll get a chance to elaborate on that in a moment.
Most of the guys display a general disdain for icky girl stuff. But Sheldon is the one who harbors the most virulent form of casual misogyny.
Tonight's theme, flags of countries that have been torn apart, and the women I have a feeling were responsible.
Okay, that was an episode-specific thing. I don't know off the top of my head what episode that was from or what happened in it, but I know that when Sheldon Cooper makes a passive-aggressive episode of fun with flags like that, it's his way of expressing his emotions about something else going on in the episode. So I'm guessing it had something to do with his girlfriend, Amy Farrah Fowler, whose actress I've responded to previously on this channel, doing something that probably caused a rift in their relationship. In short, this is a cherry-picked example, and it's taken way the fuck out of context.
My father used to say that a woman is like an egg salad sandwich on a warm Texas day.
What?
Full of eggs and only appealing for a short time.
And if that's misogyny, then it's obviously something he picked up from his father, as is explicitly stated in the clip. At this point, it's almost like you're actively trying to refute your own arguments.
The whole shtick of Sheldon's character is that he's too smart to understand, or care to understand, what's socially appropriate and what's not. As such, he's dismissive of nearly everyone and their feelings.
Exactly, and that's why I think Sheldon is so overrated as a character. He's kind of hard to like when almost every episode features at least one example of him being a completely selfish, arrogant dick to people just because he thinks his intellect makes him better than everyone else. And the novelty of his social ineptitude kind of wears off when you realize that by now, he should be able to fake being nice to people, even if he doesn't feel like it, just to avoid the hassle of people calling him out on it.
But when he belittles and devalues women, it's very specifically because they are women.
Thanks to you, I know better than to ask if you're menstruating. And based on your behavior, I don't have to.
I think we can chalk that one up to him not understanding women beyond their basic biological differences from men. After all, he has a hard enough time understanding men, and he is one. But no, according to your ideology, women are the victims of literally everything, so even a nerdy weirdo who is quite possibly on the spectrum can't just lack understanding. He has to be branded with a scarlet M and be accused of actually hating women.
Most of the jokes on The Big Bang Theory, such as they are, revolve around the following ironic hook. Since geeky guys don't fit into the macho mold of what we expect sexism or male entitlement to look like, it's funny to watch them engaging in that type of behavior.
It's anything can happen Thursday. Let's hit the clubs and meet hot women.
Here we go. Lock up your daughters. We're gonna hit it and quit it.
Notice the target of the joke is not the misogynist behavior.
Or we could finish eating and go to the comic book store.
Also a good plan.
Instead, it's making fun of men who are not traditionally masculine enough to believably pull it off.
Well, you're kind of right. The reason the joke works is because they try to be like what they perceive as the ideal man, because they want to be seen as cool by their peers and attract female attention, just like most men are biologically programmed to want to do. But the thing is, despite their best efforts, they fail at accomplishing this because it's simply not who they are personality-wise. So instead of going clubbing and picking up chicks, or at least trying to, they're much more comfortable staying at home, eating takeout, or going to the comic book store.
Unlike many of our earlier examples from the 1980s, the creepy behavior on The Big Bang Theory is meant to be understood for what it is.
Wow, it's amazing how you can not only read the minds of the creators of The Big Bang Theory, but you can also go back in time and read all the minds of the filmmakers from the 80s as well. Yeah, this is totally not just your subjective interpretation of how certain characters and their behavior is meant to be perceived. Your opinions are facts!
I know you think you're some sort of smooth-talking ladies' man, but the truth is you are just pathetic and creepy.
And this is where ironic lampshading comes in.
So what are you saying?
Obviously, the joke is that he's too socially inept to realize the creepiness of his own behavior, even when he's being explicitly told about it. It's like the Sheldon thing, only less realistic.
Which is when media makers deliberately call attention to a dissonant or overly cliched aspect of their own production. Rather than writing better, different punchlines, writers attempt to duck any potential criticism by pointing out the sexism inherent in their own jokes themselves.
Well, you know what they say, those who can't do, critique. I would fucking love to hear what passes for comedy in your creative little mind, Johnny. Do you think you could write a sitcom half as successful as The Big Bang Theory with your better and I'm sure oh so original brand of comedy? I think not.
Was it? That's it. Confirmed. We now have the address of the top model house.
Okay, for the record, what you guys are doing is really creepy.
You know what? If it's creepy to use the internet, military satellites, and robot aircraft to find a house full of gorgeous young models so that I can drop in on them unexpectedly, then fine, I'm creepy.
This technique of making something super obvious to viewers is meant to let us know that the writers are self-aware, and to make us feel like we're all in on the joke. Most comedy writers know that retrograde-style bigotry is no longer acceptable on primetime television.
Then what the fuck is with all the racist, sexist, homophobic, patriarchy shit you're always banging on about, huh? If we're living in a racist, sexist, homophobic patriarchy, then why isn't retrograde-style bigotry, whatever the fuck that means, acceptable on primetime television anymore?
But many of them still want to use sexist, racist, and homophobic jokes as an easy way to get cheap laughs.
Actually, indie monopoly is just like regular, except the money's in rupees. Instead of hotels, you build call centers. And when you pick a chance card, you might die of dysentery.
Have you ever considered that their intent might be making fun of those ridiculous stereotypes? Oh, who am I kidding? Of course you fucking haven't.
Ironic lampshading provides a clever way for them to keep getting away with it.
Oh, just FYI, that was racist.
Now, the problem with this comedic device is that, by itself,
Hey, why am I in charge of phone support? Seems a bit racist.
it doesn't critique or challenge sexism, homophobia, or racism. It simply acknowledges it in a humorous way.
Maybe, brace yourself now, this is gonna sound crazy, but just maybe, they aren't trying to write a political manifesto or an instruction manual for social behavior. There's just the smallest chance that instead they're trying to write, oh, I don't know, a fucking comedy show for escapist entertainment!
Oh, very clever, but still racist.
Duly noted, Steve from Wichita.
Acknowledging bigotry is not the same thing as critiquing bigotry, especially when the punchlines end up making light of serious social issues like sexual harassment.
Dr. Cooper, you said things to your employee that you just cannot say in the workplace.
Oh, I see the confusion here. No, Alex thought I was singling her out. No, I meant that all women are slaves to their biological urges, you know? Even you.
Again, that's more of Sheldon's social ineptitude and fundamental lack of understanding of women. I legitimately don't get how that makes light of actual sexual harassment cases, because it's basically just a joke about how weird and oblivious his character is. But whatever, go on.
So while it's true the message of The Big Bang Theory isn't sexism is super cool,
Relax, no one's gonna be looking at her hair.
I'd argue the implications are much more troubling. Because the show's message is more akin to sexism is mostly harmless.
And my message to you is that you're seeing sexism where it doesn't fucking exist.
And especially when that sexism is coming from geeky guys.
There are pitfalls, trust me, I know. When it comes to sexual harassment law, I'm a bit of a self-taught expert.
Adorkable misogyny is presented as just another socially awkward personality quirk, as something that's perhaps deserving of an eye roll or an exasperated look, or maybe some lighthearted chiding, but never as something to be taken seriously, or seriously challenged.
Wow.
You're engaged to my friend.
Hey, Bernadette doesn't mind where I get my motor running, as long as I park in the right garage.
I can't believe you're engaged to my friend.
Lots of women don't care if their men ogle other women as long as they don't cheat. It's the ultimate example of the look but don't touch rule. And to the women who are into that, Johnny Mac here just called you misogynists. Or maybe you have internalized misogyny. Whatever, I don't care.
At its core, the adorkable misogynist trope is built around the old axiom that boys will be boys. And what that phrase really means is boys will be sexist, or boys will be creepy stalkers who sexually harass women, as the case may be.
Oh my goodness, oh my gosh, I think we've gone full Macintosh. Oh my goodness, oh my gosh, I think we've gone full Macintosh.
What in the unholy abomination of eternal fuck is going on in your head, Macintosh? So, a phrase exists to shrug off the slightly rowdy behavior that naturally occurs in adolescent boys, and you just can't fucking let it go, can you? You have to twist that into some kind of rape apologia, and then you repeatedly insist that that's just how the rest of the world thinks. No, that is only how fucked out, brainwashed identity politicians like you and the hollow papier-mâché straw creatures you imagine everyone else to be think. No one uses that as an excuse for rape, sexual assault, harassment, or any other adult criminal behavior. If anything, women get away with those behaviors far more easily and are excused for it far more often.
On the very rare occasions when one of the geeks is called out for his sexism, the audience is meant to feel bad for him because his feelings got hurt. On television, men's feelings and bruised egos are nearly always depicted as more important than women's comfort or women's safety.
Okay, look, Howard, I just want to apologize.
I could be mistaken, but I think that in that very scene, Howard misreads the signals from Penny's apology and goes in for a kiss, but is punched in the face, which is then played for laughs. The point being that Howard's safety was seen as not as important as Penny's not wanting to touch him, basically. That directly goes against that misinformed and completely ass-backwards horseshit you just spouted about men's feelings being more important than women's comfort. If anything, it's the other way around.
The adorkable misogyny of the four main characters on The Big Bang Theory is tolerated. It's tolerated by their peers, by their girlfriends, and by their employers.
Well, despite your quirks, the three of you are very accomplished in your respective fields.
I don't know what you mean by quirks, but
The trope downplays the sexism of men who don't fit into the macho stereotype by framing it as pathetic, as non-threatening, and as not that big of a deal. Of course, the reality is that sexism is a big deal, as practically any women involved in geek subcultures will tell you.
Everybody's staring at me.
Well, apparently I found the fucking unicorn because the most gaming, nerdy, internet-cultured woman I know thinks you're a fucking retard and that neither the show The Big Bang Theory nor any of the various nerd subcultures are inherently sexist. And the funny thing is, when I asked her about this so-called sexism that people like you claim is everywhere in nerd culture, she said that she hasn't experienced any sexism against her, except from feminism! And even if someone did say something legitimately sexist to her, or about women in general, she may not like it, but she wouldn't get all butthurt and offended like you and your ilk. She basically gives no fucks.
There is, sadly, no shortage of real-life examples of men involved in nerdy hobbies or professions who behave exactly like the guys on The Big Bang Theory. And it's not harmless, and it's not adorkable.
Harassment scandals that have been sweeping through Silicon Valley.
60% of women who work in the tech industry have reported unwanted sexual advances.
In its simplest form, it's a torrent of attacks against women.
Gamergate? Seriously? The media coverage of that was about as one-sided as a fight between Brock Lesnar and Conan O'Brien. The fact of the matter is, there's all kinds of people with different perspectives on Gamergate. Many pro-gators wanted stronger ethical standards in gaming journalism so that they could be reasonably sure that the person telling them what games they should buy isn't literally in bed with the developer of said game. Anti-GG people tended to go with your narrative of women are the victims of everything ever, help us, we're being cyber raped. The point is, there's at least two sides to every story, Johnny. Try to listen to more than one, okay?
Frequent problem inside Uber, sexual harassment and sexism.
And it's harmful in all the ways The Big Bang Theory tells us it's not. It's damaging to women. It's damaging to their sense of safety, to their well-being, and to their careers.
Former Google engineer who wrote a 10-page memo criticizing the company's diversity program, saying women lag behind in the tech world because of their biology.
The unnamed Google engineering employee wrote, "Biological causes may explain why we don't see equal representation. Men have a higher drive for status, and women on average have more neuroticism.
You just cited a case where a man got fired, lost his job, lost his livelihood, and arguably lost his career because he said some things that women didn't like. And yet you're trying to say that the women were the victims there because he said mean things about them? Not the guy who lost his job for wrongthink. No. Women are the victims of everything ever. Isn't that right, Johnny? I honestly don't know how you function as a human being if this is how your brain works. It takes work. It takes effort to be this insane.
Just because the performance of a geeky version of masculinity is markedly different from traditional Hollywood archetypes, that doesn't necessarily mean that geeky guys are any less invested in sexism. The bottom line here is that there's nothing cute or harmless about misogyny, even when it's coming from men who may play Cleon Boggle.
You are without honor!
It's really not that difficult to write nerdy male characters who aren't total creeps. There's Abed from the show Community.
You have to understand about Abed. He's usually, adorable weird, like Mork from Mork.
There's Lionel from Dear White People, the TV series. And there's Ben from Parks and Rec.
Presenting the Cones of Dunshire, a brand new gaming experience.
All these characters somehow manage to perform a quirky, awkward, and often humorous form of masculinity without the undercurrent of retrograde sexism.
I couldn't help but notice that with the possible exception of the Parks and Rec guy winking at the camera, none of the clips you showed of these supposed good nerdy male characters featured them expressing romantic or sexual interest in a woman. This supports my theory that you see male sexuality as inherently evil and sexist, and therefore will label any male character who expresses such an interest in a female character as a misogynist in some form or another. And that's really all this video is. It's a giant finger wag in judgment of men who dare express their sexuality in a way that you do not approve of. Keep in mind that what you call misogyny or patriarchy or even rape culture is somebody's fucking fetish. And yes, that means that there are in fact women who enjoy being sexually degraded, who enjoy being subservient or at the very least caretaking towards their significant other, and or who even enjoy rape fantasy roleplay. And if pointing out the women you're insulting with your intellectually dishonest bullshit is the only way to get you to consider the possibility that you might be wrong, then so be it. And that's pretty much the end of the video. I hope it wasn't too long for you, and I hope you enjoyed my return to the classic response video format. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. I always appreciate that. If you didn't, you can give it a thumbs down and let me know what you think I got wrong in the comments. Of course, if you like my content, please make sure you're subscribed and that the bell icon is turned on so that you get notifications whenever I upload. You can follow me on various social media sites like Twitter, Minds, and Gab.ai. And if you follow me on my alternate video platforms, VidMe and BitChute, you can see my videos several hours early and pretty much as soon as they're done. And most importantly, if you really enjoy my content and want to see my production quality and or upload frequency improve, you can help that along by supporting me on Patreon. Any amount you can spare would be greatly appreciated. As always, thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time. Stay great, apes.